Hi, this is Helen for Tabby. Continuing our series on the negative cards, today let's talk about death. And to be honest, I debated doing a video on this card as maybe it's a little bit of a cliche that the death card is scary. It's been mentioned so many times by probably every single tarot reader that there is, that the death card talks about more change rather than literal physical death. But then again, I also see some other persistent misconceptions, such as you have to be gifted a tarot deck to be able to use it. So I figure it's probably safe to get this covered. Common keywords for the death card are change, endings, transformation, and rebirth. In the Rider-Waite-Smith, we can see that death comes for everyone, from kings to peasants. And Benjamin Franklin once said that in this world, nothing can be said to be certain except for death and taxes. But is there only one kind of death? So first, let's step back a little bit and take a brief look at the concept of death. In the universe, nothing is wasted. So we could say that perhaps nothing truly dies. In Eastern cultures, death is seen largely as a transition, and with each ending comes a new beginning. The idea of death as a fearful and forbidden topic that we would rather ignore emerged around the late 19th century in Western culture. The earliest references to tarot date back to the mid-1400s, so we can probably assume that the inclusion of the death card was never intended to scare anyone. 100 years prior to our first records of tarot was the first wave of the Black Death. So death would have been an extremely common occurrence. The major arcana and the tarot overall deal with our soul's journey and the human experience. So to not have a card that talks about death would be a little bit strange. So I would say that the fear of the death card comes from our cultural conditioning. If we were to come to this card from a different cultural or time perspective, our attitudes would be completely different. The vast majority of the time, say 99.999%, this card indicates the ending of a cycle and the beginning of a new one. That can still be difficult for some people because change is not always easy. But to fight change means stagnation and simply putting off the inevitable. Death can be death of a relationship, death of a job, death of your current way of life, death of a cycle, and where there's going to be a major new change, a new life coming in. It's not like the Tower card though, where it's seen as something that happens to you. The change can be external or it can be internal. For example, you might decide to quit your boring job, leave your stale relationship, and go off traveling the world, completely changing your life and your perspective. So I feel this card is often saying as well that the conditions are ripe for a change. So if you are contemplating doing something new, ending something, and this card comes up, then it is a massive green light. I have pulled this card many times, but there's only one time that it referred to a literal death. This was not predicting a death, which is important to say. In the reading, the Queen of Swords came up as the card for the querent, and the Death card came up in a position for their relationship. I later found out that the querent was a widow and her late husband's birthday was coming up. So I actually struggled with this at the time because it had always been drummed into me that this card is not about physical death. And it was only really after the reading that I was able to understand that combination. And here's the thing, a reputable tarot reader is not going to predict your death, particularly not if the death card comes up by itself. There are apparently some specific card combinations that could indicate death, but I have not come across any consensus of what those combinations are. And a good reader just will not predict your death. So if you are worried that a tarot reader is going to do that, and that might be holding you back from buying tarot cards or visiting a tarot reader, don't worry about it. You can rest easy. You are going to die one day, but it may not be the end, just a transformation.